Phones are wonderful until they're not. I get that.
Yeah. Well,
So
it was
what-
super fun because I was out in the pouring rain and I had a plastic plate to put over the top of this thing.
Is it raining right now?
Nope, it is not raining right now, but it was 15 minutes ago.
Really? I've been working in my office, didn't even notice it.
Yeah, well, I don't know
I'm not
what to
looking towards
say.
the window when I'm working, so that would make sense. But you had some questions about the open records law.
Yeah, I definitely want to request any and all open records pertaining to Larron and anything that gets unsealed too. I want to get the audio and video from the responding officers, the 911 calls, the SWAT team, and the visuals of the notes he was dropping out of the windows.
Okay.
I try to remember, there were at least 3, but I'm pretty sure the number was more like 4. I remember the guy leaning out of the window and pleading for his life, talking about how scared he was of the cops. And I'm 3 hours past my bedtime. I'm not getting access to that building or the next one. Gabe's my neighbor across the hall.
Okay.
Apparently, his wife and all 5 of his children were in there. If they'd have started firing bullets, God knows what would have happened with those strays.
You're giving me a whole lot. Let's kind of chunk it a little bit so that I can answer
Yeah,
your
but
questions
I'd
and
like to
concerns,
go
okay?
ahead and get copies of that stuff as soon as it can be legally released. As you know, there are federal laws related to the Freedom of Information Act. There are state laws in North Dakota called sunshine laws related to
Yep.
the release of that stuff. And
So let me kind of break that down for you a little bit, okay? The Freedom of Information Act applies to federal stuff, not state stuff. So that isn't inapplicable to us. So if you're looking for like what statute is applicable to the Ward County State's Attorney's Office, that would be our own open records law, which sometimes, like you said, is referred to as the sunshine law. Now, the case that you're talking about, that is an open case right now. In other words, that we haven't had reached either one of the resolutions. So we haven't had a dismissal, we haven't had a conviction, we haven't had a pretrial diversion or anything else. So it's still an ongoing case.
so I can't put in a request and ask that you please not damage or destroy evidence or alter it in any way.
Okay. Well, so let me kind of break that down again. You certainly can make a request in writing, which is what the North Dakota statute on open records requires. You can't orally request records, it has to be in writing. We do not destroy documents.
Right. Body camera footage and audio tend to be overwritten a lot.
Okay, well, let me kind of walk you through it, okay? So we're not in the habit of destroying documentation on cases. Ma'am?
I can remember requesting the body camera footage for my traffic ticket. Seriously, don't pull that.
Ma'am, you're going to have to let me talk. Okay. So, if you're talking about some footage from, say, the Minot Police Department or the Ward County Sheriff's Office,
And the SWAT team.
okay, you're going to have to let me finish.
And the 911 calls.
You're going to have to let me finish, okay? Because you're talking about 2 different things. You're talking about a situation that you had apparently had a traffic violation or were accused of having a traffic violation, and there was some body cam or in-car camera that you were not able to get access to. The thing about that footage is that it is exceedingly expensive to store all that information unless it's necessary. Okay? So a lot of the in-car video that it gets produced by officers routinely gets deleted if it's not used for anything, or if someone doesn't request it in time.
Okay, which is part of the reason why I am trying to request this stuff at this time. My writing skills may not be ideal, but you close at 4:30, so can I hang around to get this written out? Because I want to make sure I get it wrote out right. Because I want all of it. The dash cams, the cameras the police were wearing. I want the 911 calls. And if you're getting the footage from Jackie over at the hotel, I want that too. And of course, the nice, cute little love letters that Larron Lewis was dropping out the windows, which are probably not love letters, I know, but...
I'm not familiar with the case off the top of my head. I might have looked at it at some point, but I just don't. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not ringing any bells in me right now. Okay, so I don't know what evidence we do or do not have in that file.
Well,
just because I'm not
you
familiar
might
with the
want to
case.
listen to the audio and understand that those of us that are... It may not have been to law school, but we understand we're shelling out millions and millions of dollars for those police because we are not supposed to be doing frontier justice.
No.
Any one of us that could have held a weapon at that hotel could have gone ahead and shot Larron.
Ma'am.
But the idea of the police was to take him alive for a trial.
Ma'am, I'm not denigrating you right now. I'm not talking down to you, okay?
Yeah.
And I recognize that you haven't gone to law school, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to an opinion or the right to this information, okay?
Thank you.
This is not me. I'm not talking down to you right now, okay? What I am saying is that there are many attorneys in this office, as you're aware, and I don't know all the details of, say, Deputy State's Attorney Sorgan's files, and she doesn't know all the details of my files because we have enough work to maintain on our own cases. You understand what I'm saying? So I just don't know the details of the particular file that you're referring to. I can tell you that the building closes at 4:30. We reopen at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. None of the information that you're talking about is anything's going to happen to it between 4:30.
But I'm going to be at work. It's 4:15 now. How about you show me how to fill out that open records request so that I can go ahead and have my name on the waiting list for that information as soon as it's available to the press.
If you need some help, sir, we can get you taken care of.
Sorry, I don't want to.
No, it's fine. I'm not going to show you how to write something out like that. It's very straightforward. If you look at the century code on our open records statute, it does give some guidance on what you need to do as far as like what you need to write out. It's not complicated.
Okay, so nobody can give me a disability accommodation. I'm dyslexic.
Okay. I don't really know what that has to do with anything.
Well, you're telling me that the Century Code does give some guidance. You're 15 minutes till closing, and I'm
Yeah.
going to have to miss work if I come back Monday. So I'd like to get this written out correctly so that I can get this done and
Okay.
on paper before the building closes. I'm being told that it is correct to use a notepad and there's a specific format. Do you want me to go ahead and write a date and my name down? Will that be sufficient to have it written, or just a request for all audio, all audio, visual, and written documents pertaining to this case, plus all 911 calls and any other materials?
Sure. But keep in mind, you are going to have to put a fair amount of information on your writing.
When you say fair amount, do you have a specific definition?
Suspend your license.
Well, when you
You have to get an SR22, I already know.
when you go down to the clerk's office, which is where I would suggest you go first and foremost, you as the member of the public are free to get the citations.
Do you have insurance?
There are documents that are going to be publicly available right
So
now.
what you
Okay,
need to do
so like any citations from the event,
call DOT,
the
ask them what you
information
need,
or
and then
complaint
you'll have to get
as
insurance.
drafted, those are publicly accessible documents.
Through the clerk's office, she's not going to send me back to you.
That's
If you
totally
request the
different.
information, that is a document that they can provide to you, okay? Or the citations. That document is going to have the law enforcement number that is associated with that crime.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you being this cooperative. Yeah, I plan on doing that. But you said that there's still "quote unquote" quite a bit of information,
So
and I'm
what I mean
supposed to
by
review a statute.
What I mean by that is that you're asking for some specific information. You're asking for specific body cam. You're asking for specific photographs. It sounds like you want to see copies of whatever was tossed out the window. That you
Yeah.
said that you said there was something like love letters is what you said, but you didn't think they were love letters.
No.
So what I'm saying is,
I'm being sarcastic,
No.
but
I get that. But what I'm saying is, it sounds like you've got a list of things that you want to have, which is fine. And the best way to make sure that you get that list of things is to make a detailed list that I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Okay? And also keep in mind that that does cost money under the Open Records law.
it
to
costs
pay
a
for
lot of money to spend millions on police to have them threaten a guy who's terrified for 3 hours trying to get him to give up while pointing guns at him. And he's talking about how many people the police have killed. I definitely think it is worth the money for people to be able to get a hold of the footage, to be able to hear what he was actually saying to the police from the start, whether or not he ever answered his phone, whether or not he talked to the negotiators that apparently were present. These are things I want to know, and I think the public has a right to know. And if at all possible, I'd like the same copy of the things that were released in Discovery are going to be released if he has an attorney request them.
That's all something that you could potentially ask for. What I'm telling you is under our open record statute in North Dakota, you as the requester you have to pay for all those items that we would provide to you.
Okay.
And you would have to pay us before we could release those to you.
So basically me cutting work is going to interfere with that. So maybe we ought to get this thing wrote out tonight. Am I going to have to pay in advance, or can I just have the request in place so you guys don't delete things?
Well, let's kind of take a step back on that. Because the first thing is, we're not going to delete something that's an open file. Okay? And as far as the fact that you came here about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and are requesting this, we're open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday
So you're
through Friday.
open right now, and I'm trying to hurry to get it done before the office closes.
Yeah, the building closes in about 10 minutes. About 9 minutes now.
And we spent 5 minutes going around about this, and I'm glad you're bringing it up that I should also go to the clerk of courts. If I get next Friday off, that's going to be on my short list too.
That's fine. But what I'm telling you is that I'm not going to write this out for you. That's not a disability accommodation.
I didn't ask you to write it out. I asked for instructions on how I need to write it out.
And I gave you those instructions. I referred you to the North Dakota Century Code, which is where you can find North Dakota's statute on open records.
The statute on it, but not how to make a request at the state's attorney's office for body cam footage.
The statute is very self-explanatory. Now, as far as what you talked about, as far as like missing work, that sort of thing, it is entirely your personal choice on whether or not you want to come here and make it in writing in person. You could always send an email outside of regular work hours to the state's attorney's office. You don't have to be in here in person and miss work to do this.
Yes, and I don't have to spend 20 minutes going in circles, but it sounds like it's a really good idea to make records of this, because I can remember what it was like when I was sick with double pneumonia, and I was still trying to get records of that traffic stop with the stolen car. And I know the games that are getting played on me, and I don't think it's amusing. I do think that as a member of the public, I do have the right to these things. The same amount, the exact same stuff that would be in Discovery and anything that would be deleted prior to Discovery. And I'd also like to see if I couldn't get a hold of prison records too, not just the complaint and the other documents that you're talking about, but the records as far as how Larron's being treated now.
Okay.
I think that these are things that need to get out. If there's problems that need to be solved as far as the system goes, we need to know it.
Okay.
I mean, even if that guy is scum that terrorized a kid, he needs to be treated humanely and presumed innocent until he's proven guilty. And
Now,
these
I
are
wanna
things
take a
I want to
sec-
know as the
I
public.
get that. Are those your gas stamps on the floor there?
Probably are, but it's
Okay.
a good deal more important that I get this information.
I just saw those on the floor. I collect
Thank
the
you.
gas stamps. I didn't want you to lose them.
Yeah.
Now, as I stated, you are entitled to the information that we're discussing right now, with some exceptions. By that I mean, like our documents are going to have some social security numbers sometimes. That would be redacted.
I'm
as you
glad
would
it'll be
expect.
redacted.
I'm sorry?
I'm glad it'll be redacted.
Exactly. What I was going to say is, which is, I'm sure what you would want as a victim. if
The
you were a
audio
victim.
footage from a negotiator, though, should not be redacted. Neither should those police outside or the SWAT team that had
Okay.
the guy out there for 3 hours and managed to nicely tell him they had a sniper pointed at him.
I don't know.
And the guy was busy telling him how many people he knew that were killed by cops.
And I don't know the details of this case, but what I'm telling you is this, that you are more than welcome to file your request for the documents under North Dakota's open records law. Now, because it is an open file, we are prohibited by law from giving you these documents until the case has gotten closure. Okay?
But you just talked about how expensive it was to keep records from the body cam footage and from dash cams and all the rest of it. So I want to go ahead and get this stuff written out, and I want to have that way I've got an idea of the cost that I'm going to have to pay to get a hold of these.
Okay. What I was referring to is that body cam footage and dash cam footage of, say, a speeding ticket, right? Those aren't going to be held indefinitely because a person only has a certain period of time to, say, challenge those and request that information.
Meaning that I need to get this done before the place closes.
No. What I'm saying is, because this is a criminal action, we have different standards applying for records retention. Okay? So we have to hold on to it for a much longer period of time, and that's by statute.
Okay, what are the statutes on the number, the time you have to hold it?
You know, off the top of my head, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that there are different rules and regulations when you're talking about, say, a speeding ticket or, say, a stop sign violation, which it sounds like that was the vein of the issue that you had with the Minot Police Department. Was the Minot Police Department that
I'm not
you
sure. I
yourself?
think it might have been the Ward County Sheriff's Department, or it might have been the Montreal. No, it was Ward
Montreal.
County. I had to go here.
Sure. And the Ward County Sheriff's Office is going to be subject to the same restrictions as far as storage expenses that the Minot Police Department is. It is very expensive to store all that that video for all that period of time. So there is a very early cutoff if you're talking about moving violations, which a speeding ticket is.
What's the
stop sign violation.
cutoff? Because this is something the public should know.
You know, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to do some research on that.
Can you email me?
You know, the thing is that that's some information that you can find, and I'm not going to find that for you.
Find it where?
In the North Dakota Century Code.
The Century Code specifies when they can and can't delete footage.
I'd have to go back and look, but it does specify how long we have to hold on to information from specific cases. Like, for example, a murder case, we are required by law to hold on to the entirety of that file indefinitely. So, for a murder investigation, body cam footage, all that, that entire file has to be preserved forever. Okay?
Yeah. But as far as criminal terrorizing, those are things I'd like to know because in this case specifically, and as far as it goes for police officers refusing to give names and badge numbers, which is what I just encountered between here and the police department, these are things I'd also like to go ahead and look up the statutes for because if they're functioning as law enforcement, by law, if they're encountering me in the public, if they're trying to give an order as a police officer, they are supposed to present their name and badge number.
Well, in Minot, at least with the Minot Police Department, they don't have badge numbers.
Yeah, but they are supposed to give their name and any...
They do all have names, but they don't have badge numbers.
Yeah.
So, that's not something that...
But there's no
You're required by
penalty
law.
if they don't give their name?
You know, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you on that.
Okay.
So it sounds like you've got a fair amount of reading to do on the North Dakota. So if you go to ndcourts.gov, the North
I will
Dakota Century
basically
Code-
get sent in circles, get a whole bunch of lawyer ads, and...
No, ndcourts.gov is the website for the North Dakota Supreme Court. And if you go on legal resources there's a tab for the North Dakota Century Code and also for the North Dakota Constitution and a few other
What
things.
about the case law that's actually readable to the public?
That is also something that can be found on ndcourts.gov.
Okay.
So if you search by, if there's a tab for opinions, and you can type in keyword search on that website, and I have used that website myself over the last several years of my career to find case laws. So I'm not telling you to use something that I won't use myself.
No, but people that are professionals know how to search it a little better than amateurs like me.
This is true.
I've been running my own set of case law with the help of some friends. Some of the rules and statutes I want to ask, if for any reason your clerk becomes irritated with me, is it legal for her to close the office early if she's only irritated if she doesn't like my disability, my politics, my skin color, my faith, something like that?
Well, let's take, like I said before, we're going to take a step back here because no one's done that. Okay.
Nobody's done this here.
Okay. I can't speak of other places, but the Ward County State's Attorney's Office is not in the habit of mistreating people based on their skin color, based on their
But
their
is this
gender.
on your own good? Is this on your own good graces, or is there any law against closing a public place early because they don't like the camera?
I don't know, but what I can tell you is that you're filming me right now, and I'm fine with that.
I'm grateful because you're way better behaved than most of them, and I appreciate it. I don't know if this is something to stop me from sending in the records request in a timely way or not, but
No.
I'd like to go ahead and at least have the written part of the request
Okay.
in.
Sure.
And I did specifically ask whether or not I had to financially pay for the stuff ahead of time,
Okay.
because I do need to know the amount that I have to come up with.
So what would happen is that now what I'm gonna suggest that you do is when you make your writing that you do it in an email, which does qualify as a writing. Okay.
Yeah, I prefer it too because it's got spell check, and
Sure.
I can go ahead and edit for missing words.
Absolutely, which I prefer doing things in like writing by email or like Microsoft Word, because when I handwrite things out, I tend to make spelling mistakes myself. So you're preaching to the choir there. But the other thing is, we are at 4:30 now.
I know.
The building has closed.
So I have to wonder, did you do it on purpose to go ahead and stop me from putting it in on paper, or?
No, because I suggested to you that the best way to do it would be in writing through email, and we have that email. I also gave you the website of the North Dakota Supreme Court, which also has a very good self-help section for people like yourself who don't
But
have
it
legal
doesn't
training.
have the tally, and it doesn't have access to the clerk's office, and I don't have their card either. And one thing to remember, you didn't mention specifically whether or not I had to pay the minute I put it in writing, or whether or not I can
did
do it
not,
without
and I
pay.
meant to get to that, and we kind of, sorry, I wasn't purposely
Yeah,
forgetting
no,
to get
I'm
there.
sorry. I've had a lot of guys,
No,
I've
no.
had a lot of people that do that tactic to act super nice, and you figure out real quick you're getting burned, and I'm
No.
sorry I'm being so,
Miss Ferris, it's okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say was, you making the request in writing. What typically happens is that you would make the request, we would make those copies, figure out that stuff, and then we would have a bill for you to pay, and then you would have to pay that in order to pick up those documents, any discs, that sort of thing. Okay.
what's the largest volume of information and the highest bill somebody's had to pay?
Boy, I have no idea. That's a good question, but I have no idea.
Are they usually higher than $100?
I just don't know. I can tell you that we don't get that many open records requests, so at least from my experience. So I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell you, because I can remember as a little kid seeing old nude footage of reporters that would do stuff like investigate facilities that were manufacturing nuclear stuff, and accounts and stories from employees, and it was that intense that people could get access to those places.
Yep.
They could get access to places where people were dumping toxic wastes, or military facilities and all the rest, and they were just doing the most incredible stuff. And I am seeing nowadays where a pet reporter is reading a news release, she can't even get Larron's name straight, and she's not like me with multiple disabilities. And it's a paragraph long, and I and the other residents lived that. We were trapped outside, either alongside the Hardee's parking lot in tank tops as the temperature dropped to 45 degrees, or there were people trapped inside. And I found out the kids weren't all together. 3 of them were down with the babysitter. I mean, it was just, it's stuff we're living
doesn't
through.
sound like a good time.
No,
I
it
get
doesn't. And I think pulling back that footage, it might reopen old wounds for some people, but for me, even if it does, it's a form of closure.
I get that.
And it's a form of accountability too, because I know whether or not people are following procedures. I get it. It's nobody's favorite when somebody's leaning over your shoulder, but you have to remember, I have a 10-year conviction for successfully resisting rape. And I mean, I'm not sorry. That to me was law enforcement looking over my shoulder. And prior to that, I also had them for saving my own life from stuff like knife attacks. And I'm not amused with, I'm not amused with what's going on. And I think it's my right as the public to hold
Sure.
the officials that I'm paying for accountable.
And I get that.
And I want to make this stuff known.
No, absolutely. It is after 4:30, so unfortunately I got to close that door.
Yes.
But like I said,
It is
my
within the time and the hours.
Yeah, we're past the time though because we're closed now.
Mm-hmm.
So my suggestion, like I said, the best way you could do it for a writing, which is what's required by statute, is that email. And I think we both agreed that that's the best course of action. That also
It's my I wanted to do it both in email and paper. It is my legal right to do both. I've had it before where people say that they can't see my emails or that they can't see this or that. If I'm doing it by as many forms as possible, that it's written in all formats,
Sure. Now,
it's going to get in.
What I would suggest then is number one, I would still email. That's probably going to be your best bet. But if you want to make sure that we get a paper copy, just print off the email and bring it in, and then you can make sure that we get that.
But you're giving me your word that you're not going to allow them to destroy any evidence within a week's time or
Yes.
overwrite it or whatever else. Because one of the things I do know is that there are forensic professionals that can pull that stuff out of overwritten drives.
Yep, I agree. But at any rate, it is after 4:30. I have to ask you to leave because we are closed for business for the week.
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you. I apologize. It's stuff I'd need to look up.
Ms. Ferris, you
And
don't need to
it's-
apologize. I'm more than happy to sit down
They
and try to
don't-
answer some questions for you.
They don't teach us this stuff in school, and I appreciate you behaving so well.
It's my pleasure.
Thank
But
you.
You
And
have a good weekend.
I plan on being back next Friday unless there's an emergency or a situation.
Okay.
And if it is possible, I would appreciate it if you could give me a ballpark figure because I do want everything that I can get a hold of, like you said, from the complaints to the letters to everything, but especially the audio and footage. I want to know how people were behaving, but I also want to know what they were reacting to, what information was being given to who at what time, how they responded. Just like, I understand I'm the Monday morning quarterback from hell, but it's
okay.
it's a major part of our freedom.
The thing is, I really couldn't give you a ballpark because I don't know how big the file is. Like there are some files we get, like for example, a driving under
In
suspension.
a week's time, you wouldn't be
You
able
really
to.
should be able to just let me finish my speaking. A driving under suspension case, it might be that many pages. So if you did an open records request on that, it might be like $2-3. And then we've got some murder files where it literally takes up banker's boxes and it gets to be really big. I don't know the file that you're talking about specifically, so I can't really answer that. But I do need to close the door.
Yes,
It's well after 4:30.
would a week's time be enough time to find out the size of the file and the approximate cost estimate for copies?
Like I said, the email, we wouldn't even be looking at doing your request until the time period where we could actually do it. So I don't know that we'd have an answer for you next week.
You wouldn't
Okay.
know how much you have prior to that because I do think that's a responsible thing to ask. If you're currently processing it, you don't have to release it to me to know the size of what you have right now.
I understand your question. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate question. What I'm saying is we wouldn't even get to the open records request because it is an open file, things get added sometimes. Okay?
I understand.
So your request wouldn't be complete, so to speak. But
I understand.
I do have to close the door.
Yes,
because
sir.
it's
May I
after
have a
4:30.
second card? And
Just
just in case the first one goes like the gas stamps.
That's a good point. I don't know if we have one around here.
To think of it, what I stick in my back pocket.
It is on the Ward County website. You can find all information.
Including the clerk's stuff with the complaint?
Well, that, I don't know if you can access it online. You might need to come in person, so.
Yeah. Well, I got stuff set up, I guess, for Friday, and I'll go ahead and try to put it in my planner. But
Okay.
if I could nicely, even if you add to it, I get it that it wouldn't be a final cost, but at least you could tell me what it is to date within a week's time, so I know to have at least that much set aside, give or take so much, and that sort of thing.
I understand, and I understand your position on that, but what I'm telling you is that no one in my office is going to
Handle
do
it?
that until the file is closed, and it is subject to open records laws, okay?
You can't tell me what it's already added to tally?
We're not going to do that until it is subject to open records laws, because we have a lot of other things that we have to get done. So-
Would somebody in your office at least be able to tell me what the largest cost has been to, for a person to get a hold of records?
I think that'd be a good thing for you to ask in your email. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm gonna close the door now. It's been a
And
good
no
talking to you.
second card?
I don't know where they are, to be honest with you.
Thank
but
you.
All our information is on wardnd.com. Okay.
Thank you for your time and thank you for being so civil.
All right. You have a good night now.
You too, thanks. A body on drugs. Things to keep in mind. These things were given out like candy from doctors' offices. Hollywood Police Department, who was a polydrug abuser, but his drug of choice is methamphetamine. Keep in mind, methamphetamine is what they were giving little kids like me out of first grade because I was diagnosed with a quote-unquote rare and interesting learning disability, and it did that to her. This is what they're giving children, and they're trying to interfere with the parents' right to say no. Is any education worth this ever? Probably couldn't take care of herself. And they're giving that to children. I guess I better go ahead and go on being a squirrel. He was very civil, but once again, he didn't release anything practical. Beyond the fact that I'm supposed to submit it in writing, and the Ward County Clerk of Courts doesn't have anything available. Once again, he's vague about the cost because he knows I'm very poor. I don't have access to much of anything. At the same time, it's super important that this stuff be made. People need to know this stuff. We need to be watching to know that they're abiding by the law. If it's important for us to pay for them to enforce it, they need to abide under it. They need to submit to the laws themselves, barring actual emergencies. In that case, it was an emergency, but it was not sufficient for them to dispense frontier justice. What's with the light? This should be visible. Hi. Do I have to walk back through there, or is this the exit? Yeah. I'm just wondering what in the world's happened to the lighting on my camera. Thanks. By the way, is the sheriff's department closed already?
Their offices close at 4:30.
Ah, so they're outside offices too. I just blew a whole day.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks. By the way, how long do we have to leave the building once the 4:30 mark comes around?
All the offices are closed.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, with the building closed at 4:30 and the offices closed at 4:30, unless you're here for official business, you are supposed to leave.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay that it took me 10-15 minutes to walk out, right?
Oh, yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And you're not going to arrest me if you see me up there with the camera 15 minutes after closing. You're going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me now's the time to leave, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead This is a 30-minute file and it's taking up space, but I need to get this stuff prepped. I just missed my chance to print stuff out too. Oh, what the heck's going on with the lighting here? It's totally washed out now. I accidentally touched something to... Oh my God. That was horrible. One thing I appreciate, some of our nothing like a train to mess with my audio. Okay. This is something I appreciate. A woman named Debbie Ferris, I kid you not, she spells her last name the same way I did. But I don't know that any of her kin are any relation to any of mine. She basically, through her advocacy, made those laws to create safe havens for unwanted babies. I know they've actually got series on reality TVs that say that women didn't know they were pregnant. And there's enough of them that go to abortion clinics because they find out at the last minute they're pregnant. And it turns out it's too late to kill their baby. And I won't lie, I'm grateful for every kid that's born alive. It's just wrong to kill a kid who's never done anything, never said anything. A helpless little baby. It's just wrong. But that Debbie Ferris lady discovered that, started originally trying to pay for funerals for those babies that were killed and dumped or died from being dumped. And she discovered that law enforcement, of course, went after her, but she didn't fit their stereotypes of what an offender would look like. She was a married mother with children and ways of supporting them. And I guess they figured they couldn't get her, so they let her continue on with their charity. In the middle of that charity, she discovered a woman was facing charges for abandoning her child at a safe spot. Someplace, I think it was like a hospital or social services. She left her baby where she knew that baby would survive, where it'd be taken care of. And Debbie fought to change that law. At least I think that's the name, Debbie. It was on the back of the Reader's Digest. Well, their glory was fading back when it was not as great as it used to be, but still a good magazine. It's something I remember, and it's something I'm grateful for. God bless that woman. When you think of citizen activists, People think of these great changes like Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and the Freedom Riders. What I'm going to go ahead and point out is it can be as simple as a mother, a married mother or kids, going out to give abandoned babies a funeral. The protest she made, the ability that she made in her state, in her life, to go ahead and get before the states and to make laws that would legalize a mother leaving a baby where it'd be cared for and safe. I kind of want to put that bunch of BS on the video. In the meantime, I feel like garbage. I started out late in the day. I had other errands to run for survival. And look at me. Had I done it first thing in the morning, I could have got it done in time. And I should have. Somebody didn't help me, and I was trying to do other practical stuff that I ignored all week. This ain't right for me to do that stuff. To ignore these things. Larron Lewis may deserve exactly what he gets, and this may be too good for him. But things everybody needs to keep in mind here. This isn't about what Larron Lewis deserves. This is about procedure and how people handle things. Because for every Larron Lewis, there can be an innocent person that's caught up in the same thing, where they've got the wrong person, or there were circumstances that they didn't know or understand. There are so many situations where you deal with somebody who's either physically or mentally handicapped, or somebody who didn't know what they were doing or how they were doing it. Too many people not experienced enough to know or understand how things work. I'm gonna hop off now before I eat up all my storage. I'm gonna say a little more. As far as liberty goes, it's not easy. That stuff about me being the Monday morning quarterback from hell. The reason I'm thinking of that is I'm thinking of how mad I was that a DA or anybody leaned over my shoulders for trying to save myself from being raped and trafficked, or the time I had a knife held to my throat, or any of the other times that I've been in a self-defense situation. I've always been the one that's been charged. It's pretty impressive to me. I am very white, like it died yesterday. All my ancestors are white. This isn't a black thing or a minority thing at all. They will take advantage of anyone who's poor or can't mount a defense or doesn't have community standing. It's not good. And that's part of our duty as liberty. I have the right to vote. I never lost it. And the candidates are still scum. I love a lot of the libertarian platforms, but just like the Republicans, they've got no compassion on the poor. They believe that we're not working, or that it's the right of those that work to withhold and to not care. It's the most brutal form of capitalism. I'm not saying that the poor have a right to everybody's work, or that we should divide equally, or that, we should have socialism. But the thing is, what God prescribed for the poor in the Old Testament isn't socialism, or at least in my eyes it isn't. I get it, some people would feel it is, and if it is, then I'm for what God talks about. The reason we have laws is because people can't be trusted to take it, each individual can't be trusted individually to run things as a whole. In the end, stuff gets neglected. That's the reason we're subject to these laws and these taxes, because people are not always responsible. Just like just like the grocery store has to hire people to get carts out of the parking lot, and there has to be a supervisor over the employees. It works that way in our societies. It's not ideal and it's not fair. But I personally believe that we need a minimum of government, and we need as much voluntarism as possible. But where society will not take responsibility, there needs to be accountability. And that's the hard part. That's the reason why I'm so upset about the situation with Larron and the frontier justice stuff that the SWAT team tried, and the police, the other things. Our Constitution basically said that people good and bad had a right to a fair trial. The U.S. Supreme Court affirmed it over again with the case of the Miranda rights. I pray to God that, we behave ourselves, but there's too many people like Larron, and it's not okay to be dispensing frontier justice. I think I'm not saying our prisons are exactly humane either, but where there's life, there's hope. And I pray that God's able to bring a change in all the world's Larrons, including the one that's in trouble. And I pray that we're able to do good things. I want to be so careful because I don't think socialism's right. I think that people should be able to keep what they earn and produce. But it's like we're just going in the wrong direction. We're trying to cut any and all help from the poor, but we're trying to go ahead and subsidize corporations and the rich, like Rush Limbaugh said, because they deserve some sort of reward for being rich. As a Christian, I can't condone that. It is not moral. It is not ethical. Don't ask me to. And I guess I better go ahead and pipe down because I'm running this stuff out. But also as a Christian, I'm going to say this much. Whatever we have, who's ever entrusted to enforce the laws or be an avenger of blood, they need to abide by the laws and the rules. There needs to be very few exceptions. Where there's life and death emergencies, I can understand making exceptions to the law. But what's eating me alive about Larron is he had nowhere to run trapped up in that room. Law enforcement was outside any place he could have reasonably used as an exit without a lot of explosives. And they were outside the building too. Had this guy managed to smash in the walls and run through individual units, the other doors were still being guarded or observed. And the way we've got our society with all the cameras and the facial recognition, he would have been caught quickly. This isn't the old West where you could get away on a horse and live in the next county openly. Or even the next state. We shouldn't be having this garbage go on. I'm not saying that guns are bad or that the police don't need weapons. I'm saying that when somebody talks about being afraid of the police and comes to them with open hands and says that he doesn't want violence, that is the time to de-escalate. That is the time to say, okay, we're going to have our guns available and ready, but out of sight. You get to be ready for the worst, but to prepare for the best. To try to bring out the ones that they best feel would have a rapport with Larron or anybody that's accessible. And to go ahead and to say, okay, if you're willing to keep your hands empty, let's talk. Let's make it sure to it that that list of people killed by the police isn't getting any longer. Let's make sure that you're not on it. Come out with your hands empty and up and we'll talk. And I get it, there was probably at least somebody that thought of that. The problem is there were so many people inside of that window showing weapons, showing guns. One sheriff's deputy didn't put down his sidearm the whole time. One man at three different times I saw people sighting rifles at Larron's window before the SWAT team rolled up with their military vehicles repainted with the police logo, having a sniper come out of a turret. Those of you that don't know, that stuff where a man basically commits a crime, runs around with a gun, they have something called probable cause where the police can come in and search that place. There was no good reason for anyone to go ahead and For thoroughness, they might have wanted to execute a search warrant for certain things like a lockbox or a computer or electronic devices, but they had the right to go in there to search for weapons and to deal with an emergency situation. They knew what they were doing. It was a prelude to murder, and they knew it. And poor Larron knew it too. I just wish that they would have made the guy feel comfortable about trusting him. Made the rest of our society feel comfortable. The issue isn't that... the things are... I don't know what to say. I'm not saying that they need to disarm themselves or not be careful. If Larron had started shooting, those people that were out of sight could have come in a heartbeat. They could have pulled their weapons out and been ready real quick. But the stuff where they're walking up and sighting him in front of a window, in front of his window, visible to him, that ain't right. Yelling out threats that they've got a sniper and they're ready to get him, that ain't... no. Not with the input he was consistently giving for more than an hour. We could have had this end so much quicker. And I think the value of human life's worth it.